Beloved, before we begin this journey together, I need you to take a deep breath and open your heart, because what I'm about to tell you is not a story chosen at random. It is a mirror, a doorway, and a message wrapped inside a moment. And if you are hearing this right now, it is because heaven aligned our paths for something far deeper than coincidence. I want to tell you about a man named Elijah, not the prophet from the pages of Scripture, but an ordinary man living a life that looked calm on the outside, yet carried storms on the inside. Elijah was the kind of person who worked hard, tried to stay strong, tried to stay grateful, and tried to keep moving forward, even when life felt heavier than his own shoulders could sustain. Every morning he woke up with a strange tightness in his chest, not from sickness but from something deeper, something older. He couldn't explain it. It wasn't anxiety, it wasn't sadness, it wasn't fear, and yet somehow it was all of those things blended into a weight he didn't have the words to describe. He would walk into work and feel a sudden shift in the atmosphere, as if something unseen had already walked into the room before him. He would sit at home and feel a silence too loud to ignore. He would try to sleep at night, but there were moments he'd jolt awake, not from a dream, but from a presence, as if something touched his spirit, not his body. Elijah wasn't the kind of man who believed easily in spiritual warfare. He thought he simply needed rest or maybe a vacation. But rest never restored him, and vacations only made the heaviness louder, because silence has a way of amplifying the battles we try to bury. But here is the part Elijah never expected. Everything he felt, everything he feared, everything that quietly tormented him, did not start with him. It started long before his birth. It started in the life of his father, who carried wounds Elijah never understood. It started in the life of his grandfather, who lived with a sadness no one could name. It started in the life of his great-grandfather, who was known for a darkness he never overcame. Elijah had inherited more than just blood. He had inherited a battlefield. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Elijah sat alone in his living room. The lights were off, not because he wanted darkness, but because he didn't have the strength to care about the light. He leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes on the floor, feeling the weight of something he couldn't describe. And then, without thinking, he said something out loud. "I don't know what's following me, but I feel it." The moment those words left his mouth, something broke open inside him. Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough in awareness. He finally recognized the truth he had been avoiding. This wasn't stress. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random pain. This was spiritual. And that realization was the moment heaven stepped in. That night, while scrolling on his phone, he came across a prayer video, not because he searched for it, not because he clicked anything similar before, but because the Spirit drew him to it. The title spoke of breaking hereditary patterns, and something inside him tightened, as if his spirit whispered, "Pay attention. This is for you." The moment he played the video, he felt a surge inside, a stirring, a shaking, a spiritual alarm, waking up everything dormant inside his soul. And then he heard the words, Psalm 27 exposes what hides in the dark. Psalm 109 destroys what has been assigned against your destiny. His chest trembled, his hands got warm, his breath deepened. For the first time in years, he wasn't afraid. For the first time in years, he felt seen. For the first time in years, he realized the battle was real, but so was the breakthrough. Now listen to me closely, because if you are hearing this story, it isn't for entertainment. It's because you are Elijah in your own way. Maybe your battles don't look like his, but your spirit recognizes the familiar weight. You know what it feels like to carry burdens that don't belong to you. You know what it feels like to fight thoughts you never invited. You know what it feels like to walk through cycles that repeat without reason. You know the heaviness. You know the mystery. You know the pressure. You know the pattern. And most of all, you know something spiritual is happening, the same way Elijah was guided into truth. You were guided here. You didn't arrive by luck. You didn't press play by mistake. You didn't find this message randomly. When you finally begin to look at your life with spiritual clarity, something extraordinary happens. Everything that felt random begins to reveal its structure. The battles that seemed isolated start forming patterns. The struggles that appeared disconnected begin to expose a hidden sequence, and the emotions you thought were personal suddenly show themselves as inherited echoes of something older. This is where many people misunderstand the nature of spiritual warfare. They think trouble appears out of nowhere, when in truth trouble follows lines, cycles, routes and doors. Nothing in the spiritual world is random, and nothing that has followed your family for generations is accidental. There are forces that move in silence, shaping the background of a person's life like shadows that appear only when the light finally gets close enough to reveal them. And that is exactly what is happening to you now. The light of God is approaching the places that were kept in darkness within your bloodline. Psalm 27 says, "The Lord is my light," and light does not simply comfort. Light reveals, exposes, illuminates, and uncovers. Light shows what was hidden in the quiet corners of your lineage, the patterns that grew roots long before you were born, the spiritual agreements that were never broken, the wounds that never healed, the doors that no one closed. When David declared the Lord as his light, he wasn't talking about gentle illumination. He was speaking of a divine force that confronts darkness with authority, a light that enters the rooms no one dares enter, a light that exposes every enemy hiding behind emotional shadows, generational patterns, and spiritual blindness. This is why you've been feeling that strange heaviness, those cycles that never seem to end, those invisible pressures that return at the moments you least expect. You are not being dramatic, you are not imagining things, and you are not spiritually unstable. You are encountering darkness that has been living in your lineage for decades, perhaps centuries, waiting for someone strong enough to finally recognize its presence. You are that someone. You were the one who began to question why certain things repeated. You were the one who felt something wasn't normal. You were the one whose spirit reacted even when your mind didn't understand. You were the one who sensed the pattern long before anyone could explain it. And that is the greatest evidence that you are the one chosen by God to break what your ancestors carried without knowing how to fight. Now listen closely. Curses do not survive by strength, they survive by silence. They survive because no one names them. They survive because generations grow accustomed to their weight. They survive because families normalize dysfunction and call it personality, call it how we are, call it our luck, call it our story, call it fate, when in truth, it is spiritual inheritance. Darkness hides behind familiarity. It hides behind emotional reactions that everyone in the family shares. It hides behind the same failures, repeating in different decades with different people. It hides behind the same places where joy collapses, the same moments where peace disappears, the same triggers that ignite the same wounds in different generations. And when no one sees the spiritual root, the curse remains untouched. But tonight, something is shifting in your favor because you are no longer spiritually blind. The moment your awareness awakens, the curse begins to tremble. The moment you recognize the pattern, the spiritual foundation of that pattern begins to crack. The moment you understand that what felt natural was actually inherited, the legal right that darkness held over your bloodline begins to collapse. Psalm 27 reveals what hides in the shadows, but Psalm 109 is where judgment begins. Psalm 109 is not a gentle psalm, it is a weapon, a sword, a divine verdict spoken against anything that lifted its hand against your destiny. David wasn't speaking to a human enemy alone. He was addressing the spiritual structures behind the enemy. He was confronting the unseen forces that manipulated the atmosphere, stirred trouble, attacked identity, and sought to break purpose. This is exactly what is happening in your bloodline. Forces that have followed your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors now attempt to follow you, because what was not confronted in one generation often seeks to repeat itself in the next. But God brought you into this moment because you are the first in your lineage with the spiritual vision to recognize the pattern and the spiritual authority to break it. When you pray Psalm 27 and Psalm 109, you are not reciting poetry. You are issuing a spiritual command that reaches into the past and breaks chains your ancestors didn't know they wore. You are cutting off spiritual roots that fed on family wounds. You are dissolving agreements made in moments of pain, trauma, silence, or ignorance. You are telling the darkness, your time is over. And listen, the spiritual world hears you. Heaven moves when you speak. Hell trembles when you awaken. Generational forces lose their ground when you align your voice with the word of God. The enemy has fought your life differently because you carry a different calling. You have felt warfare that doesn't match your age. You have experienced battles that don't match your decisions. You have endured heaviness that doesn't make sense for one lifetime. That is the evidence that you were born into a battle that started before you. But it is also the evidence that you were born with the strength to end it. You are not weak, you are not broken, you are not behind, you are not failing, you are awakening. And with awakening comes confrontation. With confrontation comes authority. With authority comes liberation. And liberation begins with truth. The truth that the curse didn't start with you, but it will end with you. Now that your eyes are open, the darkness cannot hide. Now that your spirit is alert, the patterns cannot continue undetected. Now that the word of God is being spoken over you, the assignments formed against your bloodline begin to fall apart. You are stepping into a level of spiritual clarity your family never had. You are stepping into a level of awareness that your ancestors were never taught. You are stepping into a moment where heaven is rewriting the story that hell tried to write over your lineage. And from this point forward, nothing in your life will be interpreted the same way, because now you know the patterns were spiritual, the cycles were inherited, the heaviness was generational, and the battle was bigger than you. And yet, God chose you to end it. When God begins to pull back the layers of your life, He does not expose things to shame you. He exposes them to free you. And the deeper you look into the spiritual history of your bloodline, the clearer it becomes that what you thought were personal flaws were actually inherited battles, and what you thought were weaknesses were actually wounds passed through generations. This is where most people fail to understand the true depth of hereditary warfare. They think curses show up violently, loudly, dramatically, but in reality, curses are subtle architects. They do not need to roar. All they need is agreement. They do not need to attack directly. All they need is an open door. They do not need to shout. They speak through patterns, through cycles, through repeated choices, through emotional triggers. Darkness thrives in patterns because patterns make pain predictable. Patterns make bondage feel like identity. Patterns make warfare feel like personality. And that is why generational curses lasted so long in your family, because no one questioned the pattern. For years, maybe decades, your family repeated the same emotional reactions without recognizing the spiritual root behind them. Anger wasn't anger, it was a wound. Fear wasn't fear, it was a chain. Sadness wasn't sadness, it was an inheritance. Silence wasn't silence, it was spiritual suppression, and all of it traveled quietly through the bloodline until it reached you. But hear me, when a pattern reaches the one person who refuses to ignore it, the entire structure begins to collapse. That is why the enemy fought your life more aggressively than others. That is why you felt battles that didn't match your choices. That is why your spirit felt heavy, even when your life looked fine on the outside. There is a reason you sensed something was wrong, even when you couldn't explain it. Spiritual sensitivity is the sign of a curse breaker. When God assigns you to break what ran through your lineage, He sharpens your discernment, even if you don't fully understand it at first. That is why you always felt different. That is why you reacted deeply to things others brushed off. That is why you carried emotions you couldn't trace. That is why certain moments shook you more than they should. Your spirit was reacting to something older than you. And now that you are aware, everything begins to make sense. The confusion you carried wasn't yours. The fear you battled wasn't yours. The shame that lingered didn't belong to your life. The emotional shifts weren't caused by your personality. They were echoes of generational wounds still trying to speak through you. But now, your awareness threatens everything the enemy built. Because once you can name a curse, you can break its authority. Once you see a pattern, you can interrupt its cycle. Once you identify the enemy's strategy, you can dismantle his influence. And that is why the spiritual pressure intensified at specific moments in your life. Because curses do not activate at random, they activate strategically. They activate when you're about to step into purpose. They activate when you're about to heal. They activate when you're about to rise. They activate when you try to break a pattern your family lived under for years. Think about it. Every time you tried to do something different, something pushed back. Every time you tried to move forward, something resisted. Every time you tried to change, something inside fought the change. This was not weakness, this was warfare. And the battlefield was not outside of you. The battlefield was inside your emotions, your thoughts, your decisions, your identity. Darkness cannot control your destiny unless it first influences your decisions. Darkness cannot influence your decisions unless it first interrupts your clarity. Darkness cannot interrupt your clarity unless it first destabilizes your emotions. And this is why your emotional life has been the primary target. This is why you felt sadness without explanation. This is why moments of hope were followed by sudden heaviness. This is why the days when you were closest to breakthrough were the same days you felt the deepest pressure. Spiritual pressure is often a sign that destiny is attempting to surface. The enemy does not fight what does not threaten him. He fights the ones who carry the capacity to break the pattern. And that is why you are here, because you carry what your ancestors didn't. You carry awareness. You carry spiritual hunger. You carry discernment. You carry strength. You carry resistance. You carry the ability to confront what they endured silently. Now let me tell you a truth that will shift your entire understanding of your life. Curses attach themselves to wounds. Not to people, not to families, to wounds. Wounds are the doors the enemy uses. Emotional wounds, generational wounds, unhealed wounds, silent wounds, hidden wounds, traumas that were never processed, experiences no one spoke about, pain that was passed like a torch from one generation to the next. Your family didn't just inherit blood, they inherited brokenness. And because the wound remained open, the curse remained active. But now that you see the wound, the curse begins to lose its foundation. Awareness is the first blow, revelation is the second, resistance is the third, but the decisive strike comes from the word. And that is why Psalm 27 and Psalm 109 were aligned for this moment of your life. Psalm 27 is the revelation. It shines a divine spotlight into the deepest corners of your soul and lineage. It exposes the fear, the darkness, the spiritual structures that have been assigned to intimidate your spirit. Psalm 109 is the judgment. It tears down every voice, every influence, every spiritual assignment that has followed your bloodline. Psalm 27 reveals what is hiding. Psalm 109 removes what has been attacking. Together they break both the deception and the influence. Together they attack both the root and the fruit. Together they confront both the emotional wound and the spiritual force behind it. And that is why your spirit reacts strongly to this message, because the Word of God is reaching the places in you that darkness thought you would never bring into the light. When God exposes something in your lineage, it means He is ready to break it. When He reveals patterns, it means He is preparing victory. When He uncovers wounds, it means healing is available. And when He awakens your spirit, it means the curse has met the one person it cannot manipulate anymore, you. Everything in your life is about to shift because the truth has been revealed. And once the truth enters a bloodline, the curse has no place left to hide. As you move deeper into the truth of your own spiritual landscape, something remarkable begins to happen inside you. You no longer see your struggles as isolated events, and you no longer interpret your emotions as random fluctuations. Instead, you begin to recognize the threads, long, dark, hidden threads that have woven themselves quietly through the fabric of your family for generations. And when the Spirit of God starts showing you those threads, it is not to overwhelm you, but to prepare you. Because what God reveals is what God is ready to heal, and what God exposes is what God is ready to judge. You must understand this. The battle you are fighting is not a battle you started. It is a battle that began long before your birth, a battle that was passed through names, faces, memories, and wounds that survived through silence. Silence is the most dangerous inheritance a family can carry. Silence is where curses breathe. Silence is where wounds grow. Silence is where trauma hides. Silence is where fear builds its throne. Silence is where emotional patterns become spiritual chains. And for generations, silence was the language of your bloodline. They didn't talk about their pain. They didn't talk about their trauma. They didn't talk about their fear. They didn't talk about what broke them. They wore their wounds like invisible clothing, passing them from one heart to the next until the emotional burden became a spiritual system. That system is what you have been feeling your entire life. But now, because God has awakened your awareness, the system is losing power. When you start noticing the spiritual fog, the fog begins to lift. When you recognize the emotional heaviness is not yours, the heaviness loses its claim. When you discern that a pattern is repeating, the cycle begins to break. And that is why the enemy is afraid of you, because you are no longer spiritually asleep. You are no longer walking with your eyes closed. You are no longer accepting your life as something random. You have stepped into a moment of spiritual intelligence that many people never achieve. You are seeing not just what is happening, but why it is happening, and that alone is enough to fracture the influence that darkness has held over your lineage. You may not feel strong, but you are spiritually stronger than every generation before you. You may not feel wise, but you carry revelation that your ancestors never received. You may not feel ready, but heaven has prepared you for years, shaping your spirit through every battle you survived. Every tear strengthened your discernment. Every disappointment sharpened your awareness. Every emotional collapse built spiritual resilience in you. Nothing about your journey was wasted. Every wound you endured is now a weapon in your hand, and every lie you broke becomes a testimony of spiritual clarity. And now that you stand in this place of revelation, there is something important you must understand. Curses attach themselves to identity before they attach themselves to circumstances. If the enemy can confuse who you believe you are, he can control what you believe you can overcome. And this is why for years you battled thoughts that didn't sound like you. Thoughts that told you you were not enough. Thoughts that convinced you progress was temporary. Thoughts that whispered you would eventually fall back into the same cycles. Thoughts that made you question your worth, your purpose, your strength. These weren't thoughts, they were spiritual intrusions. And now that you see them clearly, they cannot manipulate you the same way. Because truth is the fire that consumes deception, and revelation is the hammer that shatters confusion. Psalm 27 shines a beam of light so strong that darkness cannot stand within it. Psalm 109 brings a sword so sharp that spiritual forces cannot withstand its justice. These two psalms together create a divine movement: exposure and destruction, revelation and judgment, clarity and victory. This is the combination that is unlocking your freedom in this moment. And as you listen, something inside you is shifting, something is loosening, something is awakening, something is being lifted off your spirit. You can feel it, even if you can't explain it. A weight you carried without knowing is breaking. A cycle you thought was normal is unraveling. A pressure you believed was your personality is collapsing. This is the sign that the spiritual world is responding to this moment. But now, before we go deeper, before we enter the next dimension of this warfare, before we release the full power of the sevenfold declaration later in the message, there is one thing I need you to do. Not for me, but as a prophetic action that aligns your spirit with victory. Listen carefully, because this is the only time I will say this in the entire message. Subscribe to this channel right now. This is not about numbers. This is not about visibility. This is about alignment. When you subscribe, you are not joining a channel. You are joining a spiritual covering. You're positioning yourself under prayers, warfare, and prophetic words that strengthen your breakthrough every single day. You are declaring with your action, I am not fighting this battle alone. And heaven honors alignment. Connection is a weapon. Agreement is a shield. When you subscribe, you are stepping into a community that stands with you, fights with you, and prays with you. And in the spiritual world, unity multiplies victory. So do it now. One single action, one prophetic declaration, one spiritual alignment. And now that the action is done, we return directly to the battle ahead, because there is far more God wants to reveal to you. You have broken silence. You have awakened awareness. But now we must go deeper into the place where the curse has held its strongest influence, the inner chambers of your emotional and spiritual identity, the territory where wounds became doors and doors became chains. Prepare yourself, because what comes next will expose what followed your family for decades and empower you to shatter it completely. As you move further into the core of this spiritual unraveling, you will begin to see that identity has been the battlefield all along. The enemy never truly needed to destroy your circumstances. He only needed to distort your perception of who you are. Because once identity is weakened, everything else collapses effortlessly. Your confidence, your decisions, your hope, your purpose, your relationships. This is why the greatest attacks in your life have never been external. They have always been internal. The battle was never just around you, it was inside you, in the quiet thoughts that visited your mind when no one was watching, in the whispered doubts that rose at the edge of every breakthrough, in the sudden waves of insecurity that didn't match your strength, in the unexplained moments when you questioned your worth even though nothing had triggered it. This war within you did not begin in you. It was seeded in your bloodline. It lived in the shame your ancestors carried but never confronted, in the emotional wounds they suffered but never healed, in the words spoken over them that became part of their self-perception, in the patterns they accepted as reality because they believed they deserved nothing better, and because identity was wounded, destiny was delayed. Because destiny was delayed, the curse survived another generation. But now, with the awareness God has placed inside you, the enemy can no longer hide in the shadows of your heart. You see the lies he used, you see the fear he amplified, you see the doubts he planted, and more importantly, you finally recognize that those thoughts were never your own. You were never the insecure person you thought you were. You inherited insecurity. You were never the fearful person you assumed you were. You inherited fear. You were never the one who lacked direction. You inherited confusion. You were never emotionally fragile. You inherited emotional wounds that did not belong to your story. The enemy's greatest deception was convincing you that generational wounds were your identity, but that deception is breaking now. Because once you differentiate between who you are and what you inherited, the curse begins to lose the deepest layer of its influence. A person who knows who they are cannot be manipulated by darkness. A person who knows who they are cannot be trapped in cycles. A person who knows who they are cannot be controlled by fear. And this is why the Spirit of God is awakening your identity. He is not just revealing truth, He is revealing you. You, the one who survived everything the enemy sent to break your spirit. You, the one who carried burdens that weren't yours and still kept walking. You, the one who sensed patterns long before you had the language to name them. You, the one who felt heaviness but refused to surrender to it. You, the one whose heart stayed tender even after emotional storms. You, the one whose spirit kept reaching for God even when the world tried to silence you. You, the one heaven chose long before you chose heaven. Identity is rising inside you now. This is why your spirit feels a pull you cannot describe. This is why something inside you feels stronger, clearer, more awakened. This is why your heart reacts to these words, as if they were written specifically for you. They were. Not because I know you, but because God knows exactly what your spirit needs to hear at the moment your destiny begins to shift. And now you must understand something deeper, something that reaches into the very foundation of why you have battled what you battled. Curses survive by attaching themselves to internal narratives. They whisper into the places where your self-perception is shaped. They attempt to redefine who you think you are. They speak through the voices of people who wounded you, through moments that broke your trust, through memories that carved themselves into your mind, through failures that made you question your worth. But tonight, the power of those narratives is being broken. You are no longer agreeing with lies. You are no longer accepting emotional patterns as your identity. You are no longer confusing inherited pain with personal truth. And as your identity rises, you will notice something shifting inside your mind. The fog is lifting. The confusion is weakening. The old thoughts are losing volume. The heaviness is loosening its grip. Because your mind is finally recognizing that not everything that grew inside it belonged there. Some thoughts were invaders, some emotions were intruders, some fears were inherited, some doubts were assigned. And when you see the difference, you take back authority. Psalm 27 says, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear." That army is not always external. It is often the army of inherited thoughts marching through your mind. That army collapses when light enters, and light is entering now. But identity is not the only battlefield. There is another dimension where hereditary curses operate, the dimension of emotional impulses. You have felt these impulses before. Sudden sadness, sudden fear, sudden anxiety, sudden discouragement, sudden emotional shutdowns. These impulses were not random. They were triggers connected to old wounds, wounds you did not create. Generational wounds are like spiritual echoes. They do not disappear until someone confronts them. You are that someone. When God begins healing identity, He also begins confronting emotional triggers that were used to control your family for decades. And now, one by one, those triggers are being exposed. The moments when you couldn't explain your sadness, exposed. The moments when fear rose without cause, exposed. The moments when you shut down emotionally, exposed. The moments when you self-sabotaged, exposed. The moments when hope felt dangerous, exposed. These emotional reactions were the threads the curse used to weave patterns into your life. But now the threads are breaking. Every revelation cuts one. Every moment of clarity cuts another. Every spiritual awakening cuts more. The curse is unraveling in real time. You may not feel the full freedom yet, but I promise you this, you will. And when you do, you will look back at this moment and realize it was the turning point. The moment where spiritual intelligence replaced spiritual blindness. The moment where identity rose from ashes. The moment where truth shattered the illusion. The moment where your destiny began to reclaim its shape. And now, the deeper layers of the curse are trembling, because after identity healing comes something far more dangerous to darkness, the restoration of spiritual perception. When a person regains identity, they regain authority. When they regain authority, they regain discernment. When they regain discernment, they can see enemy tactics before the attack forms. You are stepping into that level now. The enemy cannot hide from a person who sees spiritually, and you are becoming that person. As your identity rises and the fog begins to clear, the next stage of deliverance begins to unfold within you, the awakening of your spiritual perception. This is the stage the enemy fears the most, because a person who sees spiritually cannot be deceived, cannot be manipulated, cannot be lured into old patterns, and cannot be trapped by confusion. Confusion has been one of the most powerful tools used against your lineage. For generations, your family walked in cycles, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked clarity. Clarity is one of the greatest spiritual weapons God gives His people. It is the ability to sense danger before it arrives, to discern motives behind the actions of others, to perceive the spiritual atmosphere in a room, to detect the subtle shifts in your own emotions, and to recognize when something is not from God, even if it looks harmless on the surface. But confusion is the counterfeit of clarity. Confusion is the fog the enemy places over a person's mind so they cannot see truth, cannot recognize patterns, cannot interpret their own emotions, cannot distinguish between wounds and intuition, and cannot differentiate between spiritual attacks and ordinary struggles. Confusion is not the absence of intelligence, it is the presence of spiritual interference. And for years, confusion swirled around your mind during the most important moments of your life. You have felt it before, the sudden inability to decide, the overwhelming wave of uncertainty right when you were about to take a step forward, the emotional chaos that made everything feel risky, the internal hesitation that convinced you to stay still, the fog that made breakthroughs feel dangerous. These were not personality traits, they were spiritual tactics. The curse used confusion to block your discernment, because discernment is the enemy of destruction. When you see clearly, the enemy loses his advantage. When you discern patterns, the enemy loses his influence. When you detect spiritual interference, the enemy loses his entry points. And that is why confusion was so persistent in your life, because clarity was your destiny. And now, as the Word of God moves through your spirit, confusion is being exposed as one of the oldest assignments against your bloodline. Think about how many people in your family made decisions out of fear rather than wisdom. Think about how many opportunities faded because no one knew what to do. Think about how many cycles repeated because no one recognized the pattern forming. This wasn't lack of potential, it was lack of spiritual clarity. But now, that clarity is awakening in you. You are beginning to see things differently, not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. Your spirit is detecting intentions behind actions. Your spirit is recognizing emotional patterns inside people. Your spirit is sensing the atmosphere of places, relationships, and opportunities. This heightened sensitivity is not overthinking, it is spiritual intelligence. Overthinking is fear-driven, spiritual perception is revelation-driven, and what you are experiencing now is revelation. Your thoughts are becoming sharper, your emotions are becoming more aligned, your instincts are becoming more accurate, your inner voice is becoming easier to recognize. These are the signs that your spiritual eyes are opening. The enemy tried to blind you with confusion because he knew that if you ever woke up spiritually, you would break every chain that held your lineage captive. But you are waking up. You are seeing the truth the enemy hid for decades. You are seeing the motives behind your moments of fear. You are seeing the emotional triggers that once controlled you. You are seeing the patterns that kept your family in cycles. And now, with clarity rising, confusion is losing its authority. Confusion only has power in darkness. The moment light enters, confusion begins to scatter, and the light is not coming from outside of you, it is rising from within you. God is not just showing you truth, He is training your spirit to recognize truth instinctively. This is how spiritual warriors are formed, not through comfort, through clarity. Clarity makes you dangerous to darkness, and because you are stepping into clarity, the next layer of the curse is weakening, the layer that targeted your decision-making. Decisions shape destinies, and curses survive through decisions. If the enemy can influence your choices, he doesn't need to destroy your life. Your choices will do it for him. This is why you have struggled with hesitation. This is why you have struggled with second-guessing. This is why you have struggled with committing fully. This is why you have felt torn between moving forward and staying still. It wasn't because you were indecisive, it was because your decisions were under attack. But now, with spiritual clarity rising, you will notice that decision-making becomes easier. You will no longer choose from fear. You will no longer decide from insecurity. You will no longer sabotage your own progress. You will no longer ignore your intuition. You will no longer delay what God is calling you to do. And here is the deeper truth. Spiritual clarity is not simply the ability to see, it is the ability to interpret what you see. Many people see signs but misinterpret them. Many people feel shifts but misunderstand them. Many people sense danger but are paralyzed by it. But you are entering a deeper dimension, one where interpretation is being restored, not just perception. You are gaining the ability to understand what your spirit is picking up. You are learning to recognize which emotions come from God and which emotions come from wounds. You are learning to differentiate between your voice, God's voice, and the voice of generational trauma. You are learning to identify when spiritual pressure is a sign of breakthrough rather than a sign of danger. You are learning to sense the strategies of the enemy before he forms them. This is maturity. And this level of clarity is something no one in your family had before you. You are not just breaking curses, you are evolving spiritually into the person God intended your ancestors to become. You are stepping into generational calling. You are stepping into generational healing. You are stepping into generational restoration. But before that restoration becomes complete, there is another dimension of warfare that must be addressed, the dimension of timing. Timing has been one of the most manipulated areas of your life. There have been moments when everything seemed aligned and suddenly collapsed. There have been seasons when breakthrough was close but delayed. There have been times when you were ready but the atmosphere wasn't, or when the atmosphere was ready but you weren't. This wasn't coincidence, it was disruption. But now, with clarity rising and identity healing, timing is being restored. The delays that once held you will break. The setbacks that slowed you will dissolve, the cycles that repeated will collapse, and the destiny that felt distant will begin to approach you with divine speed. As you step into this deeper layer of revelation, you need to understand something that most people never realize. Curses do not only attack identity or emotions, they attack timing. Timing is the silent architecture of destiny. Timing is what determines when doors open, when opportunities appear, when relationships align, when spiritual growth accelerates, and when breakthroughs manifest. If the enemy cannot destroy your destiny, he will attempt to disrupt its timing. Because delayed destiny feels like denied destiny, and when a person begins to believe their breakthrough is denied, they stop fighting for it. This is how curses survive. They exhaust the heart, not the body. They weaken hope, not strength. They break expectation, not ability. And for years, the most consistent attack you experienced wasn't against your opportunities, it was against your timing. Think about the moments when everything seemed to be falling into place and suddenly a shift happened that made everything collapse. Think about the relationships that came into your life at the wrong time or left at the right time, but in the wrong way. Think about the opportunities that appeared too early, before you were ready, or too late when your motivation had already been drained. Think about the emotions that hit you unexpectedly right when you were about to take a step forward. Notice the pattern. The enemy wasn't trying to stop you from having a destiny. He was trying to make you arrive at it at the wrong time. Because arriving out of season can be just as damaging as not arriving at all. If a door opens before you are emotionally prepared, you will walk into it and sabotage it. If a connection comes before you are healed enough to handle it, you will misinterpret it. If an opportunity appears before you have the clarity to sustain it, you will lose it. And if a spiritual calling emerges before your identity is rooted, the enemy will use the weight of the calling to crush you. But here is where everything begins to shift for you. God is restoring the timing of your destiny. This restoration is not happening in your schedule, it is happening in your spirit. Your spirit is catching up to what God has prepared. Your mind is aligning with what God has spoken. Your emotions are stabilizing in ways they never could before. And now, for the first time in your life, you are entering a season where time is no longer your enemy. This is why you have been feeling an unusual sense of acceleration lately, not in your external life, but inside your spirit. Something in you feels like it is waking up. Something in you feels like it is preparing for something bigger. Something in you feels like it is stepping into alignment with something ancient, something God wrote about you long before you were born. The enemy tried to interrupt that timing through delays, distractions, emotional storms, and moments of confusion. But those tactics are beginning to fail because your spirit is no longer cooperating with them. You see the distractions now. You recognize the emotional traps now. You detect the delays before they fully form. And you no longer interpret disruption as a sign that God is not moving. Instead, you interpret disruption as a sign that the enemy is afraid of what God is about to release. That shift in perception is evidence that your spiritual maturity is rising. And as your maturity rises, your purpose becomes clearer. Purpose is another battlefield where generational curses operate. Because if the enemy can keep you confused about your purpose, he can keep you wandering without forward motion. A wandering person cannot break generational cycles because they never stay still long enough to confront the root. Your ancestors wandered, not physically, but spiritually. They moved from emotion to emotion, from habit to habit, from survival to survival. They did not have the clarity to see purpose, nor the strength to pursue it. But you do. You are not wandering. You are awakening. And with awakening comes the recognition that your purpose has always been bigger than your battles. Your purpose is why your battles were so intense. Your purpose is why your emotions were targeted so aggressively. Your purpose is why the enemy tried to break you from the inside out. He knew something you didn't know yet, that when a person with your calling awakens, they don't just change their life, they change their bloodline. You are not just fighting for yourself, you are fighting for every generation that comes after you. You are fighting for children you may not have yet. You are fighting for grandchildren who will never know the battles you carried. You are fighting for a lineage that will be free because you chose to confront what everyone before you avoided. This is why your spirit feels such a deep pull toward transformation. This is why you feel the weight of responsibility, not the weight of pressure, but the weight of purpose. The weight that tells you your life is not accidental. The weight that tells you your journey is not random. The weight that tells you God has trusted you with something your ancestors could not handle. And this weight is not meant to crush you, it is meant to ground you. Purpose gives meaning to pain. Purpose gives context to warfare. Purpose gives strategy to confusion. Purpose gives strength to endurance. And now that you are stepping into purpose, every spiritual battle you once faced starts to make sense. The enemy attacked your identity because your identity unlocks your purpose. The enemy attacked your emotions because your emotions fuel your purpose. The enemy attacked your timing because your purpose was scheduled for a specific moment in your destiny. And you have reached that moment. Not the moment of arrival, but the moment of awakening. Awakening always precedes release, and your awakening is happening now. Every spiritual sense inside you is expanding. Every emotional wound inside you is healing. Every dormant strength inside you is rising. Every generational chain inside you is breaking. You are becoming the version of yourself that your ancestors wished they could be. You are becoming the weapon heaven designed to dismantle the darkness encoded into your bloodline. And now, before we move to the next block, you must understand one final truth. Once you awaken spiritually, the curse cannot operate the same way. It loses its hiding place, it loses its influence, it loses its timing, and most importantly, it loses its permission. The curse is not leaving your life gradually. It is being dismantled, layer by layer, moment by moment, revelation by revelation. And in the next block, we go into the deepest part of the battle, the confrontation with the spiritual structure behind the generational curse, the moment heaven judges what has followed your lineage, and the moment your destiny steps into full alignment with God's timing. Now that the layers of identity, clarity, timing, and purpose have been exposed, the next stage of this journey takes you into the very core of what has followed your lineage. Every generational curse has a structure, an organized pattern, a spiritual mechanism, a system that repeats itself through different phases, different seasons, different emotions, and different circumstances. The curse is not random, it is engineered. It studies weaknesses, it identifies emotional vulnerabilities, it manipulates timing, it distorts perception, and then it anchors itself in the places where your ancestors never found healing. You are not fighting a loose collection of attacks. You are confronting a spiritual system that survived because no one before you had the revelation you carry now. And if you pay attention to the history of your family, you will see the structure, moments of sudden fear that never had explanation, unexplained sadness that appeared at specific ages, relational breakdowns that repeated in similar patterns, dreams that never manifested because of similar obstacles, seasons of progress followed by abrupt collapse. Emotional numbness passed from one generation to the next. All of these are evidence of a spiritual architecture. You are the first in your lineage to see the blueprint, and that terrifies the darkness. Because once the blueprint is exposed, the structure collapses. Darkness depends on secrecy, it depends on invisibility, it depends on operating through emotional blindness. But the moment you begin to see the design of your spiritual attacks, you gain the authority to dismantle them. This is why your awareness has increased so dramatically in this season. This is why you have been sensing things before they happen. This is why your spirit feels like it is in a state of constant alert, not fear but sensitivity. You are stepping into the role of a spiritual architect, rewriting what was once written over your lineage. And now it is time to confront the very force that has operated behind the scenes of your bloodline. The structure of this curse did not attach itself to your family because they were weak. It attached because someone in the past went through a wound so deep that they opened a spiritual door without realizing it. A moment of deep betrayal, a moment of trauma, a moment of grief, or a moment of fear can open a door when the heart is vulnerable. Doors open in silence, and once they open, spiritual forces gain legal access to operate through patterns rather than events. This is why members of your family repeated the same types of relationships. This is why certain opportunities always seem to fall apart at the last moment. This is why emotional wounds resurfaced even when life seemed fine. This is why your spirit reacted to places, people, and situations without understanding why. But now that the door has been exposed, it can be closed permanently. The structure behind this curse also relied on one crucial element: agreement. Not verbal agreement, emotional agreement. When people accept emotional pain as who they are, the curse strengthens. When people assume fear is part of their personality, the curse deepens. When people normalize cycles, the curse gains longevity. When people surrender to discouragement, the curse reaffirms its foundation. You are breaking the agreement by breaking the identification. You are separating who you are from what you inherited. You are rejecting every emotional pattern that once felt normal. You are refusing every lie that once felt familiar. You are identifying every place where the curse tried to blend into your personality. And with every moment of clarity, the foundation of that curse is cracking. But confrontation is not passive, it is active. And the spiritual world recognizes authority through intention. Right now, your spirit is preparing for battle, not through fear, but through understanding. Understanding is warfare. Revelation is warfare. Awareness is warfare. Every truth you receive is a weapon forming in your hands. Psalm 27 gave you light to expose the hidden enemies that surrounded your lineage, the invisible forces that whispered fear, the unseen patterns that shaped emotions, the spiritual oppressors that manipulated timing. But now Psalm 109 steps in. Psalm 109 is not a psalm of comfort, it is a psalm of judgment. It calls down divine justice on everything that has spoken against your soul. It confronts spiritual voices that tried to dictate your destiny. It silences the accusations that followed your family. It breaks the authority of every negative word spoken over your lineage. It reverses every curse assigned to your bloodline. It dismantles every structure hidden in darkness. And listen carefully. This confrontation does not happen with emotion. It happens with authority. You are not begging God to help you. You are standing in a position where heaven has already backed you. You are fighting from victory, not for victory. You are confronting darkness that knows its time is over. This is why you have felt strange resistance in the past weeks. This is why your emotions fluctuated unexpectedly. This is why old wounds resurfaced randomly. This is why familiar heaviness tried to return. These were not setbacks, they were reactions. The curse reacted to your awakening. Systems react when they begin to collapse. Darkness reacts when light increases. But reaction is not victory. Reaction is fear. The generational curse that once governed your family is afraid. It sees your identity rising. It sees your clarity sharpening. It sees your timing aligning. It sees your purpose emerging. And most importantly, it sees your authority strengthening. Authority is the deepest weapon of all, and your authority is no longer borrowed, it is awakened. Your spirit is stepping into its original design. You are becoming the person the enemy feared you would discover. A person whose spiritual sight cannot be dimmed, a person whose discernment cannot be manipulated, a person whose emotional healing cannot be undone, a person whose destiny cannot be delayed, a person who stands as the final breaker of a curse that survived through generations. And in the next block, we enter the moment where heaven responds, where the spiritual realm shifts, where the curse collapses under divine judgment, and where your destiny begins its movement toward full restoration. Now we step into the moment where everything in the spiritual realm begins to shift. You have spent your life fighting battles you could not see, carrying weights you did not choose, enduring emotional storms you could not explain, and walking through cycles that felt too familiar to be coincidence. But now, for the first time, the heavens are aligning with your awareness. The spiritual intelligence rising inside you is not happening in isolation. It is being matched by divine movement. When heaven prepares to deliver someone, there is always a shift in the atmosphere. You feel it before you understand it. You sense pressure without knowing why. You feel internal stretching even when nothing external is changing. You become restless in environments that once felt normal. You lose interest in things that once distracted you. You feel a call to something higher, even though you cannot define it yet. This is not instability, it is elevation. Your spirit knows when heaven is preparing to intervene, and heaven has begun to intervene in your life. Just as generational curses operate through patterns, so does divine breakthrough. And the first pattern of breakthrough is disruption, not destruction. Disruption. When God begins to rearrange the spiritual architecture of your destiny, the things that were built on the foundations of the curse cannot remain standing. Relationships shift, emotions shift, thoughts shift, desires shift, habits shift. You begin to see differently, feel differently, react differently. Everything inside you begins to resist the old patterns. This internal resistance is a sign of spiritual restoration. It is the evidence that your spirit is awakening faster than your environment. The curse that followed your bloodline depended on emotional agreement, but now your emotions are aligning with truth rather than trauma. It depended on confusion, but now clarity is becoming consistent. It depended on instability, but now your spirit is finding balance. It depended on silence, but now revelation is flowing through your mind. You are becoming unrecognizable to the curse, and when the structure of a curse can no longer recognize the person it once influenced, its power collapses. The curse did not operate through darkness alone, it operated through familiarity. It knew how your family thought. It knew where your family hurt. It knew when your family weakened. It knew which triggers worked. It knew the moments when your lineage would fall into fear. But now, because you are different, because you are awakened, because you are aligned with God's light, the curse has no point of contact. A curse cannot hold on to someone who stops matching its patterns, and your patterns are changing, your thoughts are changing, your emotional responses are changing, your sense of identity is changing, your spiritual perception is changing. These internal shifts are not random, they are the sound of spiritual chains breaking. And as your spirit rises, something else begins to happen. Heaven starts to release judgment. Judgment is not punishment. Judgment is the divine correction of spiritual imbalance. Judgment is God setting things right. Judgment is God removing what was never meant to follow you. Judgment is God dismantling what darkness built. Judgment is God confronting the spiritual forces that thought your lineage belonged to them. And Psalm 109 is the Psalm of judgment. It speaks in the language of divine justice. It calls down consequences on the spiritual voices that once accused you. It breaks the influence of negative words spoken over your ancestors. It confronts the spirits that tracked your family through weakness. It severs the inheritance of emotional bondage. It declares that what was assigned against your soul returns to the sender. And right now, while you listen, that judgment is unfolding over your bloodline. God is not judging you. He is judging what attacked you. He is judging what tormented your parents. He is judging what followed your grandparents. He is judging what silenced your ancestors. You are not the target of judgment. You are the catalyst of judgment. You are the one through whom God is ending a centuries-long pattern. Every revelation you received weakened the foundation. Every lie you broke cracked the structure. Every moment of clarity stripped darkness of authority. And now, heaven is striking the final blow. You may not feel it physically, but spiritually, the collapse is happening now. Old fears are losing weight. Old emotional patterns are losing depth. Old wounds are losing their grip. Old thoughts are losing their volume. Old cycles are losing their influence. What followed your family for decades is taking its last breath. This is not something you fought alone. Heaven has stepped in. Justice is being released. The spiritual forces that once whispered in the darkness are being silenced. The accusations that once echoed across generations are being cancelled. The emotional heaviness that felt like part of your identity is being lifted. You are in the moment between collapse and restoration. This is the space where God removes everything that was attached to the curse before He builds the new structure over your life. And before we enter the final stretch, where restoration unfolds and your destiny rises fully aligned with the purpose God placed inside you, there is one truth you must hold on to. The curse is not dying slowly, it is dying completely. It is not breaking partially, it is breaking permanently. It is not weakening, it is being erased. And the person you are becoming is someone your ancestors prayed for without even realizing it. You are the fulfillment of centuries of longing. You are the answer to silent prayers your family never knew how to speak. You are the interruption in the story. And what comes next is the beginning of your new spiritual lineage. Now that the curse has reached its breaking point and heaven has released judgment over everything that attached itself to your lineage, your spirit enters a phase just as important as the confrontation itself, the phase of restoration. Deliverance is not complete when the darkness leaves. Deliverance is complete when the light rebuilds what the darkness once occupied. And this rebuilding is happening inside you right now. You may not feel fireworks, you may not feel overwhelming emotion, you may not feel dramatic change, but the shift is real. Transformation rarely begins with noise. It begins with quiet reordering. Pieces of you that were once fragmented are being pulled together. Parts of your heart that were disconnected are being stitched as one. Thoughts that once contradicted each other are finding harmony. Emotions that once moved unpredictably are stabilizing. This is the quiet work of God, the restoration that happens beneath the surface where no one sees, where only your spirit recognizes the shift. And this restoration is not random, it is strategic. God rebuilds in the exact places where the curse once held its strongest influence. If the curse targeted your identity, God restores identity. If it targeted your clarity, God restores spiritual sight. If it targeted your emotional stability, God restores inner peace. If it targeted your relationships, God restores connection. If it targeted your motivation, God restores passion. If it targeted your hope, God restores expectation. And each restoration becomes a pillar in the new spiritual structure being built inside you. You are not the same person you were when this video began. The version of you that carried confusion is already fading. The version of you that assumed emotional heaviness was normal is disappearing. The version of you that made decisions from fear is dissolving. The version of you that lived in the shadows of inherited wounds is no longer in control. A new version of you is emerging, stronger, clearer, braver, more aligned, more awakened. You are becoming who God intended long before the curse interfered. You must understand something profound. Generational curses do not only break what was wrong, they reveal what was always right. They remove the debris covering the person God designed you to be. For years, the curse filtered your self-perception through the lens of your family's wounds. But now that the filter is broken, you can finally see yourself without distortion. You can sense your strength without guilt. You can feel your purpose without fear. You can trust your instincts without second-guessing. You can walk with confidence without feeling arrogant. You can move with clarity without feeling pressured. This is what restoration feels like, light returning to places that were dim for generations. And as light fills those rooms inside you, something else begins to awaken: destiny. Destiny is not a single moment. Destiny is a direction. It is a flow. It is a movement in your spirit that aligns you with everything heaven wrote about you long before you took your first breath. The curse did not fight your present, it fought your destiny. It fought who you were becoming, not who you were. And now that the curse has lost its grip, your destiny is free to unfold. This unfolding will not be chaotic, it will be intentional. You will start to feel clarity about things that once confused you. You will start to feel drawn to people who match your new level of spiritual maturity. You will start to feel disconnected from environments that no longer align with your identity. You will start to desire things that build your future rather than repeat your past. You will start to notice that the opportunities that come to you align with your purpose, not your old wounds. The shift is happening already. Pay attention to the way your spirit reacts to certain thoughts and decisions. Notice how your intuition is guiding you with more precision. Notice how peace is becoming your compass instead of fear. Notice how your dreams are becoming bolder. Notice how your expectations are rising. These are signs that destiny is waking up inside you. The restoration God is doing in your spirit is not gentle, it is powerful. It is the kind of restoration that leaves nothing of the old structure standing. It rebuilds from the inside out, layer by layer, truth by truth, revelation by revelation. But restoration is not the final phase. This is the moment where everything you have walked through in this message converges into a single spiritual reality. You are no longer the carrier of your family's wounds. You are the carrier of your family's breakthrough. What once flowed through your lineage stops flowing through you. What once repeated through generations ends its cycle in your spirit. What once whispered in the darkness is silenced by the authority you carry now. A person transformed internally cannot be followed by what pursued them externally. You have crossed a threshold that cannot be undone. The curse is not simply broken, it is stripped of its legal right to ever reclaim what God has restored inside you. And with that restoration comes a truth many people never realize. Deliverance is not just about what leaves your life, it is about what enters your life afterward. You are stepping into a new spiritual identity, and that identity carries weight in the heavenly realm. Heaven recognizes you differently now. The spiritual authority you walk in has expanded. The clarity you carry is sharper. The peace resting over you is deeper, and the purpose rising inside you is no longer buried beneath layers of inherited pain. You are entering a phase of life your family never experienced, a phase where healing becomes a lifestyle rather than a crisis response, where clarity becomes your default rather than confusion, where strength becomes natural rather than forced, where decisions flow from wisdom rather than fear. This is what divine restoration feels like. It is not loud, it is steady, it is not dramatic, it is permanent. And now that you have crossed into this new identity, your lineage is shifting with you. Every generation after you will benefit from what you broke tonight. They will inherit your clarity, not the confusion of the past. They will inherit your strength, not the instability of your ancestors. They will inherit your healing, not the wounds that shaped generations. They will inherit your faith, not the spiritual silence that once covered your family. You are the first link in a new chain, the chain of blessing, the chain of purpose, the chain of restoration. And as this blessing begins to flow from your life, there is one more layer of transformation happening within you, your spiritual voice. For years, the curse manipulated your internal dialogue. It fed you thoughts that weren't yours, emotions that weren't born in you, fears that didn't originate from your experiences. But now, your inner voice is being purified. Your thoughts are being aligned with divine truth. Your emotions are being aligned with spiritual clarity. Your intuition is being aligned with the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. This purified inner voice will guide you into seasons of breakthrough without the interference that once clouded your judgment. And as God restores your voice, He restores your authority in the spiritual realm. You will begin to notice that when you speak, things shift. When you pray, you feel movement. When you declare truth, darkness reacts. When you resist familiar patterns, they crumble quickly. This is not coincidence, this is authority. And authority is the sign of someone who has truly been delivered. Deliverance without authority leads to vulnerability. Deliverance with authority leads to legacy. And you are stepping into legacy now. But legacy is not only defined by what you pass down, it is defined by what you walk into. Your destiny is awakening. The calling that felt distant is coming into focus. The dreams you buried are stirring again. The strength you doubted is rising from within. The clarity you longed for is becoming your new normal. This is what happens when God not only breaks a curse, but rewrites a lineage. You are not walking into your old future. You are walking into a future you never imagined, because the limitations that once shaped your expectations have dissolved. And as this final transformation settles into your spirit, there is one truth you must carry with you. The battle you fought was never just about your survival. It was about your becoming. You survived because you were chosen. You awakened because you were called. You broke the curse because you were destined to. And now that the spiritual warfare has shifted into victory, your journey with God enters a new chapter, a chapter of growth, revelation, blessing, and expansion. This message may be ending soon, but your transformation is only beginning. And before you go, listen closely. What God started here continues beyond this video. If your spirit felt this message deeply, if you felt truth cutting through old lies, if you felt tears rising you couldn't explain, if you felt warmth in your chest or clarity in your mind, then understand this: your spirit is hungry for more. And I want you to continue this journey. There are other messages on this channel that will build on what happened inside you tonight. Messages that deepen your clarity, strengthen your spirit, expose spiritual patterns, and train you to walk in authority. When you finish this video, go watch the prayers connected to Psalm 27, Psalm 35, and Psalm 91. Go watch the revelations that dismantle emotional cycles, the teachings that expose hidden spiritual attacks, and the messages that awaken the warrior God placed inside you. What happened here tonight is not the end. It is the beginning of your spiritual ascension. You are stepping into a new level. You're stepping into a new identity. You're stepping into a new destiny. And from this moment forward, Your life will not reflect the curse that followed your ancestors. It will reflect the God who just liberated you.